That's not an issue for this franchise. It's not an issue for this team. It'll just be interesting to see how they do without Ruff in there. I know they brought in the guy from the AHL team. His name escapes me right now. And Quinn knows these guys too now, so he's again, there's so many different. I'm repeating myself a little bit just in the sense that it's a win-win for these guys. If these guys get knocked out, it'll be disappointing, but it'll be like, hey, they got here, and what more could we be happy with as a franchise and as a fan base? But in the Nets, man, the Rangers don't have to worry about that at all.
Yeah, I would say that, if you just had one of these guys as your starter and the other ones weren't around, I'd feel just as confident with, and I give you a hard time about Georgiev, but if he was the guy, I would still feel very good about the team. If Shesterkin and Hank just weren't on the team and Georgiev was our guy, I'd feel very good about it. Or if Hank was the guy, I'd feel very good about it, Shesterkin. So, unfortunately, I should say unfortunately, but it's a very unique situation for this team where you have three goaltenders who could all probably go out there and succeed with this roster. And it's a tough decision for Quinn, because they all have their strengths and weaknesses, and you have a guy who has all the experience in the world, like you mentioned, but you have these two young, dynamic goaltenders, especially Shesterkin. And that isn't a shot at Georgiev. I just think Shesterkin is better. It's not an easy decision for him. And this team, as you saw, Zibanejad mentioned, we just got to go out and, we plan on winning this thing or whatever he said. So these guys are here to win. They're not here to just go through the motions and, we're back and let's see how we do. They think they can win. So picking this goaltender is going to be an important decision that he makes. I think it's hard for him to go wrong, whichever way he goes. Again, where I stand on it. Where I think he should go with Shesterkin. But, there's an argument to be made, I think, for all three. I think stronger argument for Lundqvist and Shesterkin, but that's just my opinion. And if he goes with one over the other, I could see where Quinn is coming from. Again, because they all have the strengths and weaknesses, and I'm sure Quinn, when he does make that decision, will articulate very well, his reasoning for going with whichever goaltender he picks. So, and I don't think there will be a wrong decision, because I think any of them that go out there will perform the way they have, all year or throughout their careers, which is at a top level.
No, I agree with you, man. Good stuff. So looking at the forward lines, Kreider obviously coming back healthy from this injury now. And before the Dallas and the Rado game, and right after he went down, let's not guess what Quinn's going to do. Who's your top six starting game one?
Well, I think you just got to go back to what they were doing all year. So it's Kreider, Zibanejad, and Buchnevich. And then you go with Panarin, Strome, and Fost. Fost really shouldn't be in there, but that's where it was before everything was shut down. That's been the line so far this week in camp, or those are the two, the top six are there. Fost always brings that sort of defensive responsibility, and he's shown he can score. He definitely has some pop. So he could definitely help out offensively as well. That's going to be the top six. I don't think there's any question. I don't think you'll see anything surprising on the roster. The only thing is obviously, like I mentioned earlier, is Lemieux being suspended, but that's the bottom six. And you have McKegg who will fit in there, on that bottom six with Howden and Gauthier. And the third line will be, Di Giuseppe, Hedel, and Kakko. So the lineup is there. I like the look of that lineup. It was performing well before the world sort of stopped. And that's what you're going to see. We mentioned earlier, Quinn said this isn't like a training camp. This is to get us ready to go. I know what the lineup is. I know what our lines are. I know what our guys are, and that just means you're not going to see Kratzoff get a chance to earn a spot. He's just not. He's going to be sitting in the press box unless half the team goes down. So, which is fine. It's not. That's how they're playing it. The Rangers could have played it like this is an audition for next year, and that's the way we're going to run it, and that would be fine. They're in the middle of a rebuild. This isn't about. I've said it all year. This year was never about winning a cup. This is about continuing to rebuild and develop these young players. So if they decided, yeah, we want to go with Kratzoff and we want to give Letary a look and whatever young guys that they wanted to put in a position in the playoffs to get some of that experience, I would say, look, this is part of the rebuild and this is what they're doing. But look, they're in it to win it, which they should in this type of tournament, in this unique situation that we've never seen before, where there's literally no momentum for any team coming into this. Why not stick with what was working at the end of the year? Stick with your big guns here, and you see what happens.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I definitely I agree with the way Quinn, coming out, and you could have that kind of perspective, when somebody says that, hey, this isn't training camp, and this is just like, hey, we're just going to fire it up. And, he gets a chance to get Kreider back into the lineup and gets to see that, and again, Kreider didn't really even have that chance. The team didn't really have that chance, after the trade deadline talk, right? And, the re-signing and everything else. And it was like, oh, it was done. It was put to rest. And, we obviously knew with the goaltending situation. So the team as a whole kind of just knew, all right, this is us, this is our bunch, and we're going to go for it here, and all that off-ice stuff was pretty much done, right? And then Kreider goes down. And it kind of threw a wrench into everything, obviously. And they still played good. And that's just the way this bunch has been doing it. But now, like I said, coming into this and Quinn saying this is a training company, it's like they get a second chance to kind of recharge this whole thing. And again, we're just talking Rangers here. We know every team is going through this, but with our situation here, that's like a huge thing. When you look at it, like a major re-signing, a major leader on your team, a veteran on the team, a whole season primarily based around, a second-year coach, a struggling young team, the future. Is Kreider staying with these guys? The fan base is kind of split. What's going to happen? And then, boom, it's done. And we got him. And then we lose him. And here we are. We got him back now. And this coach, this team, these players, the big guys up front, and Mika and Panarin here, and they get to roll with Kreider again. That, to me, is just phenomenal because, the last game, we've talked about this, the last game in Colorado, and why wouldn't we? Because that was the last game we all watched together and stuff. But, seeing Kreider on the ice at practice that day, skating around, and we can all remember that, the team was playing well and excited, and seeing the Islanders struggle and seeing a potential of making the playoffs was there. It was all there. And then seeing Kreider on the ice that day was just, whoa, what if he comes back? This is going to be awesome. And if we can kind of get through this road trip here and everything else, and then they get the point that night, and obviously the big celebration and everything else, and then everything stops. But, hey, man, Kreider is back. He's healthy, and Quinn's got his top guns, like you were saying, the top six, and they can roll with it. And I think, like I said, he cut through the BS. This is the squad. This is the team. Obviously, they've got some interchangeable parts back on the back end in terms of where we're going there. But you're top four. You're top four. You pretty much know who's running there as well. And this team is pretty well set, man, for a short tournament. I think. I think like I said, everybody else, their teams are healthy and stuff. But for our team, the energy, the personality, the excitement. Like I said, we won't have fans. It won't be our building. It's definitely going to be different. But if these guys can put the blinders on and play hard 60-minute hockey, I think the Rangers are going to surprise a lot of people in this tournament.
Yeah, I think this team goes as far as the defense will take them. I mean, we saw the main difference from the beginning of the season to the second half of the season was the defense, where they weren't great. I don't even know if they were good, but they were competent enough as compared to just how abysmal they were earlier in the year. And that was all the difference they needed. They just needed to be competent, and they weren't even that in the beginning of the year. So when they got to that point, that's really when they went on the run there. So hopefully the defense can continue on. Obviously, we don't have Lindy Ruff anymore. The Rangers announced that they're bringing up Gord Murphy as a defensive coach. They brought him up from Hartford. He was the assistant coach down there. I'm going to be honest. I don't know what type of defensive scheme, he's running, but obviously that's going to be up to Quinn and whether or not they continue doing what they were, where they were. And we've gone over it ad nauseum, on the show as far as them backing off at the blue line and giving up the blue line and not playing a pressure defense. You saw a little bit more of that in the second half, which I think led to their sort of resurgence as a unit. So hopefully they do some more of that. But I don't think you'll see a lot of different to what their defensive scheme is going to be. It's not like they're going to do some type of change to their philosophy in this, couple of week training camp. So, but I think the defense will be key to how far this team goes. Because like you mentioned up front, we got the horses, our top six or top five is as good as anybody's in the NHL. It's just a matter of will this defense hold up? And, again, you got Brendan Smith on the back end as, with Trouba, or at least that's where it left off. And that's what I saw in camp, is what they're doing at this point, because obviously you have Stahl and DeAngelo and then Fox and Lindgren. So, can Smith hold up? He was playing better when he was put back on the back end with Trouba, which was good to see. Can he find his game that he had when the Rangers traded for him a couple of years ago when he was running out there with Shea, and the two of them were arguably the best defensive pair that the Rangers had in the playoffs that year. I think it was that 17. If he could bring that sort of edge, that bite, as Torch like to call it, to the back end, I'd be excited to see that Brendan Smith show up again, because we haven't seen it, since he signed that big contract. So if he could bring that to the table, limit Stahl's minutes, DeAngelo showing his offensive ability where he's playing more in the offensive zone than he is in the defensive zone, because we know where that goes when DeAngelo's in the defensive zone too much. And Fox, who you mentioned before, he got a bit of a snub with the Calder. Him and Lindgren showed that they could be, if Fox doesn't end up playing with Condre down the road, if he's playing with Lindgren, I mean, that's another nice young pair that we'll see for a number of years now. That, like we've mentioned, I think individually the defense has had a good year. You look at the individual players, I think that there's been a lot of really good individual performances, minus Trouba. But as a collective unit, they've had the struggles. So if they can come together here in these couple of weeks in this tournament, I think that would be the key to any success that this team is going to have.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think Murphy's going to be pretty good. I mean, he's he's been he played with the Panthers that year that they went to the Stanley Cup Finals back in '96, and he's been around. He just joined the organization a year ago actually, but he's been an assistant coach here for a little bit and a little bit of experience, and I'm sure he all the things that you brought up and all the things that we watched this year too with the team and stuff. I mean, again, you put him on the bench here now, with Quinn. I mean, taking Lindy Ruff's experience, and with all the experience that Lindy had, and the team struggled, obviously, Murph's going to get in there and just do the best job he can. And at least him getting behind the bench now with these guys, these kids obviously have some experience, and they're fired up a little bit, and it'll be interesting. Go ahead.
It's also an audition for him too. I mean, if this defense sort of rounds out here and the Rangers go on a run, he may find himself with an offer to stay on as the coach for next year. We were discussing last week. We were discussing who maybe they would bring on, and I had mentioned maybe someone from Quinn's past at BU or wherever. it's sort of an outside the box thinking. But if Murphy comes in here and has a good